This
So I'm going to
conference will
start.
now be recorded.
So without wasting any time, we are going to discuss about VPC today. VPC is quite important part, and along with VPC, we are going to discuss about some architectural thing as well. Because if you go to face interview, then definitely people will surely ask that how do you design the VPC? What are the components? How will you secure your VPC? So these are the things which we are going to discuss today. Fine. Now, just give me a sec. So guys, I believe that you know how to create VPC. Though even I'm going to brief about VPC, what VPC is, how to create VPC, what are the things we need to consider while creating VPC. Fine. Okay. So for example, we need to set up one infrastructure. Just see this diagram carefully, and if you face any problem, if you have any problem, do let me know on immediate basis. Obviously, I will be there to help you with that. If you have any question, if you have any confusion, you can ask me. So we have this infrastructure. So right now we are going to create VPCs. Fine. So how to create VPC and how to design that first. So first of all, we need to understand like what type of services do we have. Like we have database, we have application. Let us write down that here. First of all, database. When we are talking about database, so it could be any, maybe MySQL, Postgres, it could be your any database, Oracle, MS SQL, or whatsoever database you can think of. So it could be anyone. First of all, we have database, then we have application server, then after we might have caching servers. Caching server is a single that should be in single line. Okay, caching servers, and after that we have web servers. Now, what is the role of all these? And when we are going to talk about that, we need to create VPCs for all these. Then what could be the best way to design VPCs for these? Fine. And once we create these VPCs, so how we are going to set up connectivity between all these? So we need to set at least separate VPCs for this. There are two topologies which can be followed in order to create these VPCs. So we are going to discuss both. So that will be depending on your current or maybe the best experience, whatever you want to like utilize, you can define both. So whatever you feel that this seems to be easy for you to explain, you can explain that without having any problem. First of all, I'm going to tell you the traditional way, so how people love to work on this. So there is a particular CIDR value 10.0.0.0/20. Fine. So this is default CIDR value which we are going to use for this particular class purpose. So this is our CIDR value. Now the particular subnet one we are going to create here. So within the subnet one, what is going to happen? We need to ensure that the subnet one should be created with 10.0.1.0/24. So this is our subnet one. Now in the same way, we need to create two more subnets. So like subnet 2 and subnet 3, that will be depending on the particular requirement that how you are going to manage it. For example, we are going to create these subnets for database servers. This is 3.0, and obviously this will become subnet 3. Fine. So now what happens here is the particular subnets which are here. So these three subnets will be utilized for accessing your database only. Fine. And on the top of all these three, there will be a component which is known as NAT gateway. If it is required, only then we will have NAT gateway here. And guys, keep this thing in mind, NAT gateway is also optional. That is not mandatory to have here. That is going to be optional, because as and when we need that, we need to have some internet options available here, only then we will configure NAT gateway. Otherwise, we will remove NAT gateway once again. For example, if there is some, like we need to install some packages here, or we need to upgrade some packages, there is some vulnerability which we need to fix, and for fixing that we need internet access. So only at the time of requirement we need to enable NAT gateway on the top of it. Fine. So you can say, so like you have a route table here, you have these three VPC associated with single route table. So this route table is associated with this NAT gateway. So the route table which we are going to create, so route table will be based on the particular VP, so let us try to understand that these route tables are responsible to decide whether the subnets which are associated with it, these are under public domain, or these are public subnet or private subnet. If NAT gateway is associated, then these are private subnets. If internet gateway is associated, then this will become public subnet. Fine. In the same way, once again, we are going to create couple of more subnets here. So the subnets which we are going to create here, so these three subnets will be here. Let us say, yes, these three subnets are here. Guys, if you have any doubt, any question, you can ask in between as well. No problem at all. So right now what we are going to do here is, this is subnet 4, this is subnet 5, and this is going to be 5.0. Same here, this is going to be 6, and this is going to be 6.0. Fine. Now these three subnets we are going to utilize for application. Let me mention it that we are going to utilize it for application. Application servers. We are going to run application servers here. Now the basic thing here is the application servers which we are going to run within this. So we need to identify that, do we need to have internet available on this application or not? So internet is required in two ways. So the very first one is whether anyone from internet is going to access these applications directly, very first thing. And second thing, do these applications need to hit public internet? For example, they are going to hit any public URL, they need to download something from internet. So if outgoing network is required, then NAT gateway will be applicable, or if incoming network is required, then for sure we are going to have one more internet gateway here. So this is going to be route table for these three VPCs. These three subnets will be explicitly associated with this route table. Now, when we are talking about this route table, so what type of gateway is associated with it? So if the type of gateway you are going to associate with it, for example, you are going to associate internet gateway. So if we associate internet gateway here, then this will become public subnet. It means all the three application subnets, the subnet 1, 2, and 3. So do not count the like subnet 4, 5, or 6. Let us count that under this particular route table there are only three subnets: 4.0, 5.0, and 6.0. These three particular subnets are going to be under public subnet, because internet gateway is associated with this route table, and these three subnets are explicitly associated with this route table. The route table is the main decision making point which helps you to identify that the particular subnets which you are working with are in public or in private zone. These are public subnets, so these are private subnets. Fine. Now this is one way. Second thing, like if you have like you have multiple other components as well, like caching server, web server. So you need to identify that the caching servers are going to assist these application servers or these web servers. So for example, okay, so for example, if you are going to have the like three more subnets here, why it is so? Why do you want to have three more subnets? So you want to ensure that the particular web servers which you are running currently, so these are also in the same VPC, and these are also working with your public subnet or maybe private subnet. You can decide it yourself as per the requirement of the organization that what type of subnet you want to have. Now there is an interview question that is it mandatory to have like internet access on the particular web servers. So there is no need to have internet. You can have this NAT gateway here based on requirement. NAT gateway you will have, and you will have ELB. One more component will be here, because end of the day all the traffic which is going to come on the server, that will be coming via ELB. So now you can have application ELB, or maybe you can have network load balancer. So what type of load balancer is required, that will be decided by your application architecture. For example, if you are going to route HTTP and HTTPS traffic, then application load balancer will be required. If you are going to talk about TCP, TLS, UDP, this type of protocols you are going to use for load balancing or for distributing traffic, then network load balancer will be required here. Fine. So we will have to obviously change the names of this particular, like we will have to define here 7. This will become 8, and this one will become 9. It means we have multiple subnets here. This will be subnet number 9, and obviously IP address will also get changed. This will be 9, this will become 8, and this one will become your 7. Fine. So right now we can understand that we have only one VPC. Within one VPC we have three route table 1, route table 2, and route table 3. Now based on the requirement, if it is required to have internet gateway associated with this, for example, your application servers do not need any internet connectivity, maybe inbound or maybe outbound, so there is no need to associate any gateway here. There is no need to associate any gateway here. Without having any gateway, we shall be able to communicate with database servers, with web servers, and everywhere all the servers which will be created inside this VPC. So these application servers will be able to access those servers. Now let us talk about when we are talking about designing part. So designing part covers one more thing, that how we are going to secure these particular servers, like where from the traffic is going to come. So when we see that like we have network ACLs implemented, so in this network ACL you will have to explicitly allow that traffic from this CIDR value 10.0.0.0/20. so the particular, if you remember that we mentioned one CIDR value here, which is under this particular, so 10.0.0.0/20, so that is a particular CIDR value. From there only you will allow network ACL to accept traffic, and you can have one additional rule that all the traffic which is allowed for outbound, so that will be allowed for database servers only, that will not allow any other subnets. Because if you know your application, the application is designed properly, so obviously you should be knowing that where this application will hit, whether it will hit web servers as well, whether it will hit your database servers only. So based on the requirement, you can decide your VPC in such manner. You will have at least 9 subnets, 3 subnets for database, 3 subnets for application server, and 3 subnets you will have for your web application server. Now let us talk about where will these particular caching server get created. So either you can have caching server within your web server zone, or whether you can have that under your application. So wherever it is required, if it is required to cache data of your application only, then you will create caching servers here. If you feel that first of all your load balancer will send traffic to your caching only, maybe you have Walrus, you have Redis, you have Elasticsearch, or whatever you have. So what type of caching mechanism you are using, So as per your application architecture, you will have to decide that where you are going to send the hits. If it is required to send hits directly on the Elastic server, maybe Elastic Cache, maybe Elasticsearch, maybe Redis, or maybe Varnish, whatever tool you have. So you will create those servers within this particular VPC only, or within this particular under this route table, within these subnets. So there is no need to have additional route table created for that, additional VPC created for that. So guys, this is very first way of this is very first topology which is used to create VPCs. Fine. Now, any questions so far, guys?
Yeah. So I have two questions. One is how many internet gateways and NAT gateways we can create in one region first, and second is in single route table, what's gonna happen if I'm going to attach network gateway and internet gateway altogether?
So let me tell you, by default, either you can attach NAT gateway or internet gateway. There is only one option available. Second thing, maximum you can have five NAT gateway and 5 internet gateway within one region by default, wherein you can ask the AWS team to increase number of NAT gateway or internet gateway. Third thing, you can associate somewhere 200 subnets with a single route table. That is the limit of it. Furthermore, you can ask AWS team to increase the limit. Then when we are talking about that, we have to design the application in such a way, that when we know, for example, that this is the database server, I do not need to have any internet gateway here. So why would I have internet gateway associated here? There is no need to have net gateway. I do not need to have any outgoing or any incoming traffic on this particular subnet where application servers are running. So I will not associate either NAT or either internet gateway here. I will not associate any. But yes, that will be a condition that in case of any requirement, for example, you need to update the servers, you need to download some packages from internet, you can associate NAT gateway for temporary basis on the top of this route table. Need to have basis. This will be implemented on need to have basis. So if it is not like any associate can come and can associate the NAT gateway here, so obviously this particular has to be performed based on prior approval from your higher management, maybe the particular person who is decision maker in your organization. So that person has to give in return that yes, you can associate NAT gateway here. So based on approvals, we have to associate, and once the task is completed, so after that we have to remove that as well. That should not be lying within organization, within associated with the route table and under the VPC forever. Once the task is completed, you need to remove that as well. Same thing goes here. So if you need to have NAT gateway, then have it. If you don't need to have, no need to have. So based on the requirement of these servers, if these servers are going to hit any URL on internet, then obviously NAT gateway will be required. If someone from internet is going to directly hit these servers, then internet gateway will be required. And if you feel that there is no need to have internet gateway, NAT gateway without this, like you do not want to have internet connectivity on these servers, then no need to have that particular type of architecture. You need not to have NAT gateway. Just forward traffic directly from application load balancer to these servers. Now, do these servers have public IP? For example, if I say that internet access is required here, so do I need to have public IP address associated here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you are right. So in that case, we need to have public IP address associated here. Only in case if you do not want to allow explicit access from internet, so then there is no need to have public IP address on these servers. You can work with NAT gateway only. Fine.
Yeah, fine. I have one question.
Yes.
How can we configure one subnet can access only one subnet in
your question is
subnet?
not. Can you come again? Can you explain?
Subnet 4 can access only subnet 3. How can we configure in? Where can we configure it?
Okay, so in that case, like you want subnet 4 should be able to access subnet 3 only. So all the resources, see, there are two things. Either if you allow it on network ACL level, then obviously it will be explicitly allowed for all the 3 subnets. But if you want that subnet 3 should be allowing subnet 4 only to allow internet, connectivity. So in that case, you will have to create a separate route table subnet 3 will be part of that explicit route table, then you will create a additional network ACL wherein you will allow this particular subnet to be accessing this particular subnet. Like within that network ACL, you will allow subnet 4 only to access subnet 3. So there will be additional route table created, and within that route table, the network ACL will control this thing that only 4.03s will be allowed to access 3.03s.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, so this is the first way. Now, what is the second way? So, like, why I'm talking about this particular thing? So, obviously, if you are going to face interview, then people can ask you these sort of questions. So, the second way, second methodology, and second topology to create VPC is, so the very first of all, you have a VPC. So right now, I'm not going to decide like divide the particular CIDR values. I'm going to decide like VPC1. So VPC1 is going to be management VPC. What is management VPC? So all the services which are common. For example, you have Jenkins. Let me give you some examples. Jenkins. It means for deployment purpose, you have maybe Nagios. For monitoring purpose, let me increase the font size. You have Nagios for monitoring. Then after it could be possible you have Ansible for configuration management purpose. Then after it could be possible you have ELK for log management. Maybe you have Prometheus for monitoring purpose, or maybe for some additional stuff. So all the like common services will lie here. All the services which are common, like Jenkins is common for everyone, for every services. Like it could be that you have created a VPC where only application servers are running. So obviously VPC management VPC will have internet access for sure, because Prometheus monitoring will be required to be done. ELK, obviously you may have to provide access to these servers, not on backend, but obviously on front end server, you will have to provide access to developers because they want to see some logs. Ansible, it could be possible that you may have to execute scripts from remote. Then after Nagios, you need to have one public IP address. Jenkins as well. So these servers are common because no customer is accessing these servers directly. I will repeat the words once again. No customer, no one is going to access Jenkins, Nagios, Ansible, ELK, Prometheus directly. So what customer will access? So very first VPC you will create. So obviously, like you will have to decide that I'll create like DB VPC. So all the databases which you are going to create, so these VPCs will be lying within this particular environment. Then after, all the particular application servers will be created here. And if you talk about web server, so there will be another VPC. Fine. So we can mention it here like VPC1. This will be VPC2. And this will be VPC3. So doing this, you are securing your infrastructure. So there will be 4 VPC. One VPC will be common and will be used for every available VPCs within the region. So obviously this will be on the top of every VPC. Like database connectivity will be from here, app server and web server. Wherein if web servers are not calling the database server directly, then there will be no connectivity. So how the connectivity is going to work? So app server will call, web server will call app servers only. Now app servers will call database only. There will be no such connectivity from web servers to database server directly. Fine. One more thing, like if you want to provide connectivity to your developers on the top of these particular services, like whatever services you have here, so what you are going to do here, you will create a bastion host. Or you can call it jump server. Fine. So based on this particular architecture, because this VPC has connectivity with every server, every environment. Maybe web server, maybe app server, maybe DB server. So once you log into Jump server or maybe Bastion host, you will be allowed to have connectivity to DB, app and web servers, wherein this particular management VPC will have connectivity with every environment, DB, app and web, wherein app server will not have access, sorry, web server will not have access directly to database, database will not have direct access to web server, and so on and so forth, which means wherever it is required, so minimum access policy is supposed to be implemented. For example, if you have a separate VPC and the particular CIDR value maybe 10.0.5.0, which is associated with this particular web servers, so you will have a network ACL implemented wherein you will explicitly mention that traffic from 10.0.5.0 should be coming to app servers. Now, for example, if app servers are created on 10.4.0.0, then you will mention on the network ACL of database VPC that traffic from 10.4.0.0/20 should be coming. This is how you create. So which means if I just compare both the diagrams, both the images, if I compare, so earlier as we have created separate route tables under same VPC, so the infrastructure is same. If you compare these, so infrastructure is same. For example, we have 3 subnets here. In comparison to have that, so we will have, once we create this VPC, we will create 3 subnets here as well. There will be no net gateway, no internet gateway. Fine. We will have, if we talk about app servers, so the particular route table which we created here, and we did not implement, we did not associate any net or internet gateway here with this route table. So we have created a separate VPC, and obviously we will not have any internet or net gateway under this VPC. Only the application servers will be running here. Same thing goes with this particular last one section, which is known as your web servers. So web servers, we have created further VPC, and this VPC may have internet or maybe net gateway based on the requirement. So either you can have separate VPCs or you can have separate route tables under same VPC. So am I clear on that?
One small does, sir. Then if the user want to hit the URL, then how can an user able to see his application, sir? Like he's accessing flipkart.com, then how can he able to see that all, sir?
Okay, not a problem. Let me tell you, when you're talking about servergan.com or any other domain, let us not name any specific domain. So for example, you are talking about servergan.com. We have our own domain. So when you are talking about servergan.com, so like a customer needs to access this URL. So obviously this domain must be pointed on Route 53. We have Route 53 here. Let us say Route 53. So customer will request will go to Route 53. Fine. Now Route 53 will forward the request to load balancer. Load balancer will forward request to your explicit target groups, which are created somewhere here. So there is no need to have public IP address. So when you will hit servergan.com, request will go to Route 53. Now Route 53 knows that what application load balancer or network load balancer is responsible to serve the traffic for servergan.com. So in this particular pattern, request will reach out to your VPC. So this is
Sir, do you have any monitoring tool for this on VPC? If I want to monitor VPC, is there any predefined or third-party software is there?
Yes, so one software is there, so which is known as VPC Prolog, using which you can monitor VPC completely, like what all traffic is coming here. VPC flow log is there, using which you can monitor all incoming and outgoing traffic. Because see, VPC is not a service which is helping you to serve your customers. VPC is just an isolated network environment, nothing else. VPC means virtual private cloud, which allows you to create your isolated network infrastructure, based on which you can have your servers running. And for sure, once you have all your servers running, so servers are monitored separately. So there is no need to monitor VPC, but yes, if you need to ensure that what type of traffic is coming in and what type of traffic is going out, so for monitoring that, VPC flow log is there.
Sir, why we enable DNS while creating the VPC? Is it mandatory or? And one more question. I accidentally I removed I deleted my VPC. Can we retrieve that one?
Let me understand your first question first. So you mean to say, is it necessary to create Route 53?
DNS enabling.
Yes. So let me tell you, it is not mandatory to have only Route 53. You can have any DNS. Maybe you can have Google DNS, GoDaddy DNS, name.com. Multiple domain services provider are there, but obviously you need to have at least one DNS provider. Second thing, yes, it is mandatory to have, if you need to resolve your domain name, so at least name server has to be there. Now let's come to your second point. What is your second question?
For suppose I accidentally delete after creating my VPC, accidentally deleted one VPC. So can I retrieve my VPC, same VPC, or I need to create from the starting from the scratch?
Okay, let me tell you that thing. Let me tell you that thing right away. So if any of your resources are running within your environment, let me tell you, if any of your resources are running, for example, if you have one EC2 instance running in this VPC, you will not be able to delete that. Second thing, if you have any component running within your VPC, you will not be allowed to delete that VPC. And if your VPC is empty, so this is how you can delete your VPC. Like I have just deleted the VPC. This was my default VPC and I have deleted it. So if you see, there is no VPC in my this particular environment under Ireland region. Now if I need to create, so obviously there is an option like create default VPC. So all the options which were available earlier, so same options will be available for me now once again. So the same CIDR value, obviously VPC ID might be changed, but yes, all the options are available for me. So I can monitor flow log, I can check CIDR value, I can check description, everything I can check. But if any of resource is running here, for example, if I try to create a EC2 machine here, just to show you, if I try to create an EC2 machine and I try to delete the VPC, then so obviously I will not be allowed that. So I'm going to create one random machine. So I'll not explain that how to create this EC2 machine, because I trust that we know it well. So I'm going to just click next, and obviously review and launch. I'll do it. I'll click on launch. I'll acknowledge the keys, because obviously I'm not going to use this instance for anything. Fine. So I have created this machine. Machine is in pending state. If I go once again to that VPC section, so I just explained it to you before a moment only, that we can delete that VPC easily without having any problem. So now let us see, are we able to delete the VPC right now in this particular condition? So if we see here, so obviously like VPC contains one or more instances and cannot be deleted until those instances have been terminated. So first of all, I need to terminate this instance, and there is one elastic interface. So like this VPC contains, so like this is the particular interface which is associated with that EC2 machine. So if any of the resources are running within environment, so obviously, so this interface is associated with instance ID, and that instance ID which we have recently created before 2 minutes only. So obviously I'll have to terminate this instance first. Only after that I will be allowed to delete that. So guys, are we clear on this particular thing, that how to manage VPC sort of things?
Yeah, I have one question. How to connect two VPCs in two different regions?
Okay, so there are two components here. Let me show you that what are the components. So there are two components. First of all is like VPC peering connection. Like peering connection, very first point of like component is there, which you can use to connect your two VPCs. And second option here is your transit gateway. So either you can use transit gateway to connect your multiple VPCs, and either you can have your VPC peering connection. Now there is a particular condition, that in which scenario you will opt transit gateway and in which scenario you will opt VPC peering. So let me tell you, all the time, like whether you use transit gateway or you use peering connection, so both the components are charged based on the particular data which is transferred on the top of it. But there is one advantage. And the advantage here is, for example, if you have more than 50 VPCs or maybe 100 VPCs you have within all your environment, now you need to enable connectivity between all. You need to have connectivity enabled between one VPC to another, and every VPC like this, as we were seeing here, like DB VPC should be able to connect like this. I'm sorry. So this DB VPC should be able to connect this VPC. This VPC should be able to connect this VPC, and so on and so forth. It means every VPC should be able to connect every another VPC. Web server should be able to connect this one, this should be able to connect this one to this one. It means there should be a complete mesh of VPC peering. So it will be really hard to manage VPC peering connections. Fine. Wherein if you have only single transit gateway, and using that single transit gateway, you can connect all the VPC peering connections. You can mitigate to have more than 50 VPC peering connections after creating one transit gateway. So one transit gateway is just like a virtual router, which allows you to define that if traffic is coming from which source, then where it should be forwarded. So it means source and destination you can define within single component, which is known as transit gateway.
Okay, can we connect other accounts VPC?
Yes, we can connect. So within same region, VPC peering is allowed. Within different region, VPC peering is allowed, and VPC peering is allowed within different accounts as well. Let me show you that. So for example, if I click here, so I'm not going to create the VPC peering connection, but I'm just going to demonstrate that how does it look. So for example, any name I can give here, whatever name I want. So VPC requester, it means there is only one VPC. Now select another VPC to peer, my account or another account. So for example, if I say another account, so I'll have to specify account ID 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. So obviously this account ID is not valid, so obviously this will not go through. Like same reason or another reason. So it means we can connect to another account any different region. For example, I am in Ireland region currently, and I can have a VPC peering. I can have a VPC peering within another account, another region. So this type of VPC peering is allowed. Now, obviously, I will have to define here like accepted VPC VPC ID. I will have to define here. If I say that my account only and another maybe this region or maybe another region, so obviously within another region I will have to specify here the particular value. The VPC CIDR value I will have to specify here. Like this is the VPC requester ID. So same thing, VPC acceptor ID we will have to define here. If we define, then obviously VPC peering connection will be created. Now there is one more thing. So what are the limitations for VPC peering? And limitation for VPC peering is this value should not be same. For example, if I have a VPC which is running in Ireland region and the VPC CIDR is 172.31.0.0/16, so that should not be same within another VPC. That should be different. If it is same, it will not work. Getting point?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. So what
Sir,
other
by default, how many regions can we connect?
pardon?
No, can we connect this one? By default, how many regions can we connect here?
So there is no such like current limit on the VPC peering connection. So you can have as many as you want. But yes, approx
Okay.
200 VPC is the soft limit, which you will have to get increased once you start creating VPC peering. So in order to reduce number of VPC peering connections, AWS has introduced a transit gateway component within account, within all the regions, within all the VPCs. By default it comes that you can have one transit gateway enabled, and after that you can have connectivity between your multiple VPCs. Okay, so now let's talk about what other things are there which you need to keep in mind in order to create VPC, and in order to
One question I'm having. Sir,
please.
how about any firewall? It will come in one interview. They asked me stateless and stateful firewall in AWS.
Okay. So when you are talking about firewalls, so first of all, when you talk about security groups, so security groups are treated as firewalls here. Fine. But if you talk about stateful firewalls, so obviously you will have to have your own personal firewall on the top of EC2. Like you can have EC2 running, and on the top of EC2 you can create any of your firewalls, because obviously AWS allows you to create firewall as well. When you go here in EC2 section, you go to AWS Marketplace, you can search here for firewalls, multiple, like you can have Barracuda CloudGen firewall for AWS. You can have this firewall, and you can have multiple firewalls here. So obviously this particular type of like Barracuda provides you stateful and stateless both sort of configuration available. So you can have your customized and personal firewall on the top of AWS.
So what is the difference between the stateful and the stateless?
Anyone would like to answer this?
Yeah, stateful is two ways, and stateless is deny and allow. It's explicitly creating that.
No, host to destination, I think. State.
Is it the same similar to security group and NSCL or
Yes, NACL is a stateless, and security groups is the stateful, I think so.
stateful? So both are like it will be same concept or it's a different concept? That's what I mean.
No concrete information. Anyone else would like to give it a go? I just want to understand first of all that do you understand what is stateful and stateless?
Sir, stateful means this one host to destination, the traffic, it will be directed. Is it correct?
Okay, so when we talk about network layers, so there are 7 network layers. Fine. So for these 7 layers, when we talk about that traffic is coming from in bits format. Okay, so how does data travel over the layers? So if it is physical layer, data travels in the form of bits. If it is data link layer, data travels in the form of frames. If it is network layer, data travels in the form of packets. If it is network layer, sorry, if it is transport layer, then segmentation is done there. If it is session, presentation, and application, then data is traveled in the form of data unit only. Fine. Now when we talk about stateless, so whether you are talking about there are 2 main layers, you can call it like either media layers or host layers. Understand the concept? If it is media layer and if it is host layer, so in media layer there are 3 different things where data flows, like bits, frames, and packets in media layer. In host layer it flows in either segment or data format. So when we are talking about firewalls, so the particular firewalls which are stateless, so these are especially designed to protect network based on static information, such as you can have source and destination explicit. It means if the source address is 10.0.0.0 and destination address is maybe 11.0.0.0, then it will deny that. Wherein when you talk about stateful, so stateless means you can define source and destination and it will start either accepting or either blocking the traffic. If you talk about stateful firewalls, so these do not only filter the traffic based on the particular source and destination IP address, although it filters the traffic based on content. For example, like if you have any specific like packets, for example, you have TCP packets, you have UDP packets, or maybe any other sort of packets you have, maybe HTTP packets if you have, so you can block specific protocols as well. So stateful means it does not monitor and starts blocking your packets on the top of your specific protocols. It also allows you to allow like it works in both manners. Wherein stateless, you can block only the particular packets which are coming from a specific source and which are going to a specific destination. This is how it works.
Where is this applications work in marketplace?
Pardon?
When you when you using this barcode, where is it located in the work?
Okay, so let me tell you, like you want me to, you are asking like where can I get the AMI from?
No. Where it is working? I think application level or subnet level or VPC level.
So it does not work on any level. Whenever you will have your traffic, so like as you set up your firewall, so obviously this will come with a public IP address. Fine. So every traffic going towards your data center, it means towards your VPC, that will have to go through this particular. So there will be only single entry point for your VPC, that will be this firewall. So now you can understand when we are talking about that, you will have to have end user license agreement, like on marketplace since this time, and rest of the details you can get. So software charges are this much. So you can understand the software charges. Hourly fees, you are like software hourly fees is this much, EC2 fees is this much. So overall you will have to pay this much. If you have one C4X large machine running for the with this firewall, so you will have to pay $5.72 per hour, which is really high price. Moreover, if you want to have like machine as well, so this is the particular license cost, this is the particular software cost, and this is a specific cost to your EC2 machine. So it means somewhere $6.6 to $5 per hour you will have to pay in order to have your customized, which means the particular firewall which will allow you to have stateful and stateless packet filtering. So
where do
as
we
you can,
configure?
pardon?
Where do we configure this firewall?
So when you will create this VPC, when you will create this machine, when you will boot this AMI, so obviously firewall will be available for you on an interface. So as you have an interface of your firewall, so in the same way you can start accessing it on the top of that particular. Now all the traffic coming towards your VPC, so that particular traffic will be sent to this firewall first. Now based on certain rules, so that particular traffic will be forwarded to your VPC endpoints. Maybe that could be load balancer, that could be your maybe any individual IP address or any instance or whatever. So that particular has to be configured on the top of everything, and obviously this has to be configured within an internet, within such a subnet where internet gateways are available. This has to be configured in public subnet only.
Okay.
I'm going to cancel it. So yes, any other question on the top of VPC? Because right now what we are seeing here is, see, I personally believe that you guys know how to create VPC, but the particular internal configuration, see, what the thing which we are discussing here is, these are just not related to that how to click. Okay, for example, if you ask me to create a VPC, it will hardly take me 5 to 7 minutes to create a VPC. But the main concept is here, like how to decide how to create a VPC, how to design VPC internal architecture. That is the main thing to work to understand here. And we have spent most of time today like understanding these type of flows only. So I hope this has been helpful today.
Sir, one small doubt, sir. Like in the organization, this VPC creation will be done by AWS team, no, sir?
So let me tell you, buddy, as you said, one term known as organization. So that is a particular asterisk. It means that is a condition applied thing. How it is? So for example, like if you are working with HCL, IBM, Infosys, or maybe Accenture sort of organization where every small component is handed over to one specific team. For example, let me tell you, I have seen couple of organizations where people are working only on Ansible. They are not supposed to do anything on the top of Linux boxes. I have seen, like I have been part of HCL Technology, so where these are the rules. Like a person will be working only on access management. It means IAM part only. So if 100 users are coming daily and 150 users are going, 50 users are coming, 100s are going, so the particular person will be responsible to assign and revoke access for that particular like component. So it totally depends on organization to organization that what is size of that particular. Which means if there are only 5 guys handling this sort of stuff like creating machine, providing access, revoking access, designing infrastructure, everything they will have to perform. So it is not mandatory like being DevOps. I have to design this my VPC architecture. Being DevOps, I'm supposed to decide even the network components, like what is going to be subnets, what is going to be like VPC CIDR value, what is going like how many VPCs we will be creating. So being DevOps, I have to design wherein this has to be task of an AWS architect. AWS solution architect person has to be there for designing and for like, and obviously like if you talk about like ideology, so AWS certified solution architect are the guys who are responsible for suggesting that what components should be there based on the application requirement. Now second person, the person who is going to be AWS certified like SysOps. First of all is architect, then after SysOps. So the person who is certified for implementation part, that particular person is supposed to be implementing this. A person who is certified on SysOps part, that person is supposed to be implementing this. Now when it comes for deployment, automation and rest of thing, then DevOps team has to come into picture. But what happens like ideally, so there is no AWS solution architect separately, there is no SysOps available, there is no Linux team available, there is no network team available. So being DevOps, you have to perform everything within organization. And that is why if you talk about network engineer, if you talk about Windows admins, if you talk about any other profile, so DevOps is really highly paid. Why it is so? Because they are not waiting for any specific individual person to come and to assist them. They can take decisions themselves, and for sure they can like create these sort of infrastructures. They are aware of network, they are aware of Linux, they are aware of Windows, they are aware of like AWS, they are aware of like multiple tools like Jenkins, Nagios, Sensible, ELK, Prometheus, and like Kafka, Aerospike, PHP, MySQL. So they are aware of multiple components. That is why they are that much paid. So I hope now I'm clear with the answer that there is no such team, there is no such specific like design pattern that who will be doing what. Based on organization requirement, you will have to upgrade or downgrade yourself.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, listening to you.
Yeah, sir, actually I have a question. Sir, the difference between the private link and transit gateway. One of question asked by the interviewer. And second one is what is the endpoint? Sir?
Come again.
So first question it was the difference between transit gateway and private link between private link. And second question, what is the endpoint?
Okay, not a problem. Okay, so let me tell you what is endpoint. So for example, you are running your services. Let me explain it. So what are endpoint and endpoint services? So when, for example, you have an S3 bucket and you want to access, guys, please mute your mic if not speaking. Okay, thank you. So when we are talking about S3 bucket, so for example, that we have an S3 bucket and we want to access it from such a server where we do not have internet available. So now how we are going to access it? Because whenever we see S3 bucket, so obviously AWS provides us a public endpoint to access it. Now from one private subnet, how we are going to access it? So endpoints are the services which we need to create. Like we have to create endpoint. So it will ask you like whether it is going to be AWS service, find service by name, or you have your AWS marketplace service. So what type of service you have, obviously we have to define. So like I have AWS services. So what type of services I have here? So these are the particular endpoints. It could be for S3, ECS, and any other point. So the particular components which I have here, I will have to choose from here, and after that I will be allowed. Maybe I can search it here S3. So if the service is available, for sure I shall be able to figure it out. I'll define that form.aws. That this one. So this is going to be my endpoint. This will become one endpoint for me, like route table. So what route table and all the servers which are associated with this route table will be allowed to access this endpoint. So right now I have only one route table, so only one route table and 3 subnets are coming here. You can see the subnets. Then after privacy like policy, full access or custom access, you can define like what type of access the particular like resources are going to have. Then after, if you want to have add tags and rest of things, you can enable that. So once you have this endpoint, so obviously this endpoint will allow you to access that particular component from such a VPC where internet access is not allowed. Like you have created such okay, let me go here and okay, not a problem, not a problem. I'm going to explain you that. Okay, so when we are talking about these two particular components, like we have this DB VPC, and we want to access AWS S3 from this VPC, and we do not have internet access enabled here. Then how we are going to access that? We will need to have one AWS either endpoint or endpoint service we need to have. So as we can enable individual component for with endpoints, VPC endpoints, and we can enable endpoint services for entire like service stack. So this is something a little different. We will have to define here like no network load balancers are selected. So this works with network load balancer only. If you talk about network services, so this particular works with network load balancers. So are we clear on that?
Is it working on the say only VPC or region?
So this is regional. Under this VPC, for sure, like see, when we are talking about endpoints, so we have to select the particular route tables which are supposed to be associated with it. Do you see it here? That the particular VPC. So we will have to select the VPC here. So this is VPC level service. This is not regional. Obviously, VPC is a regional service, but the particular endpoint service is regional. Sorry, is a VPC specific. Like if you have 5 VPCs within single region, then you'll have to create 5 separate endpoints.
Okay, sir. So, sir, in which case we have to use any real-time example? So we can use. We can say that in terms of interview.
Okay, let me tell you that thing as well. Not a problem. So when you are talking about any specific service, for example, we are taking example of S3. So this is the service which we have selected right now. We want that we need to access this like S3 service. Obviously, like type, this is going to be a gateway type on our Amazon type gateway. So this particular is going to work as a gateway for you. When you will be able to access this private gateway, then this will allow you to access AWS S3 from a private subnet. So what is going to happen here? If we create this endpoint, so we are going to have one private gateway with this name. Fine. And if we have available, then obviously for accessing S3, there will be no need to travel on to public subnet. As I just told you that AWS provides us the public endpoint for S3 buckets. But after creating this particular option, so there is not only one service. So for example, if you have private subnet and there are a couple of services which are available maybe on CloudTrail, if you want to access CloudTrail and like CloudTrail, you want to access CloudTrail having your private subnets where there is no NAT gateway or internet gateway available. So in that case, you can create one VPC endpoint, and using that VPC endpoint, you will be allowed to access that. For example, if you want to access such a EC2 machine which is created in different account, maybe in different region, so and there is no internet access available within your VPC, so at that moment you can create VPC endpoint. So it will allow you to have some VPC like NAT gateway that will be working as a private gateway for you only.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Cool.
Why we need is a VPN connection?
Okay. VPN connection is needed in order to ensure, for example, like there are 10 servers created, 10 database servers are created, and you do not have this particular component, which is known as management VPC. So you want to log in from here. You are sitting here out of the VPC. You are not a part of AWS now. So if you want to access your database from here, for example, there are database servers here, and you want to access it from here out of VPC. So you need to have VPN connection.
When do we
VPN,
use the direct connections? Direct connect.
so either you can use AWS direct connect connection, or you can have your own AWS or maybe your personal VPC. Fine. Now the difference while using VPC or while using AWS direct connect connection here is, so VPN allows that you can opt any VPN software to configure. Then after, if you talk about AWS direct connect connection, first of all, this is a little expensive service. Second thing, like you cannot decide the charges for that. So the charges are decided because AWS has some specific vendors. AWS has already tied up with couple of vendors in order to provide you services. For example, if you talk about India, so I'm just giving you an example. I'm not 100% sure about that. So AWS has tied up with Vodafone and Airtel. So if you feel that the particular internet which Jio is providing is really cheaper, fine. So rather than letting AWS will not allow you to opt Jio internet in order to configure AWS direct connect connection. You will have to pay, and you will have to go with whether you feel that that is reliable or not. But as per the certification provided from the side of AWS, you will have to opt only Airtel and Vodafone service providers. So that is a like drawback of direct connect connection. So is it clear?
So
Why do
we use, yeah. So we use to VPN connection rather than the direct connection.
Yes, 90% I have seen that they prefer to use VPN only. In fact, they have their dedicated firewalls, and on using those firewalls, they like create VPN connection. Like they have Cisco firewall, like they have FortiGate, Fortinet firewall. So these firewalls are used to create dedicated VPN connection from on-premises or maybe from office to AWS VPC.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
So has this been informative today, guys?
Yes, informative. I got a lot of solutions for that.
Okay, cool, great.
Is informative.
Any feedback for the session, guys? Like if there something has to be added. So guys, let me tell you before you start giving your feedback. So my main focus was to make you understand that why do we create VPC, how to design VPC architecture. See, if you want me to create a VPC, it will hardly take 2 minutes. Let me show you that how to create VPC as well. So VPC creation is the very smallest and very easiest task. But the main concept here is to understand that why we are going to create VPC. So see, we will go here. We will click on create VPC. We will define the name tag, maybe any name we can specify the CIDLog 10.0.0.0 slash maybe 20, whatever I want to give, and VPC is created. Fine. Once VPC is created, we can start creating multiple subnets here. We will have to create route tables. We will have to create internet gateway, net gateway, and whatever. So VPC creation is not the main thing. VPC creation is the smallest task. But after creating it, just the management like becomes a little bit tricky and a little bit complicated. So the main focus was on like designing VPC rather than creating VPC. So yes, now it is your time to share the feedback if you have any.
Sir, I have one more question.
Please.
So like kind of like a real-time troubleshooting questions regarding the VPC. So in interviewer asks like your application you're not able to connect to any like a VPC. So what might be the problem like that? So if they ask such kind of questions, so what are the like best steps to follow? I mean, what are the things we need to check?
Tomorrow as well we will discuss. Let me tell you, tomorrow we are going to discuss Route 53 and VPC plus IAM. These are the three components we are going to cover tomorrow. So obviously VPC is not completed. Today I have just tried my level the best to explain you how to create VPC. Fine. And
Okay.
hopefully this might have been helpful to you. This might have been might have been like informative, that how do things work in real environment, because these are the things which are like implemented in secure environment. Fine, so not a problem. Let us get connected tomorrow once again, and for sure, like I'm going to cover a couple of more things. The particular major component for sure I'm going to cover. I will not leave anything untouched. Like guys, I cannot tell you that these are the like 10 questions which a person is going to ask you. But what I'm trying to make you enable for here is, that is the particular component, that what are the particular areas you will cover. Fine. So okay guys, let's get connected tomorrow, and till then I'm just like